In 1989, Japan's health ministry looked at a national survey and found something embarrassing. Fewer than 1 in 10 80-year-olds in the entire country still had 20 or more of their own teeth. The average 80-year-old was down to 4 or 5, barely enough to chew a piece of fish without help. So the government did something almost no country has tried at that scale. It launched a nationwide campaign with a blunt, unglamorous name, 80/20, built around a single promise, backed by dentists, nurses, and public health officials in equal measure. Keep 20 teeth by age 80. By 2016, just over half the country's 80-year-olds had hit that target. Not through a wave of implants, not through some Japanese toothpaste you've never heard of, through habits so basic that most dental content skips past them on the way to selling you a whitening kit. Start with the muscle behind the whole system, because losing teeth after 60 is almost never about the teeth themselves. It's about the gums holding them in, periodontal disease, the slow, often painless breakdown of the tissue and bone anchoring a tooth in the jaw is a leading cause of adult tooth loss worldwide. And by the time it hurts enough to notice, a meaningful amount of that supporting bone is often already gone. Japan's 80/20 campaign wasn't really a teeth campaign. It was a gum campaign wearing a teeth number as its slogan. Therefore, the first habit worth stealing isn't a product at all. It's a tool most Western households don't own. The interdental brush, a tiny bottle brush-shaped tool that slides between teeth to clean the space a regular brush and even floss routinely miss. Research comparing cleaning methods has repeatedly found interdental brushes remove more plaque from the sides of teeth than floss does, and dental hygiene education in Japan builds it into the daily routine early, treated as ordinary as brushing rather than as a specialty item bought once and abandoned in a drawer. But a clean mouth isn't the whole story either, because inflammation in the gum doesn't start at the toothbrush. It starts at the immune system, and that's where green tea earns its place at the table 3 times a day instead of once. A study following nearly 1,000 men in their 50s found that for every additional cup of green tea consumed daily, key markers of gum disease, pocket depth, gum recession, and bleeding on probing move in the healthier direction. Lab work has since traced part of the mechanism to catechins, the antioxidant compounds in green tea, which appear to directly interfere with the growth of the specific bacteria most responsible for advanced gum disease. It's the same cup already sitting on the table at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No mouthwash marketing required. Quietly doing a second job nobody asked it to do. Here's where it connects to something you've probably never linked to your mouth before. Periodontal disease and diabetes run a two-way relationship, each one making the other worse. High blood sugar feeds the exact bacteria that damage gum tissue, and the chronic inflammation from damaged gum tissue makes the body more insulin resistant in return. So a mouth problem quietly becomes a blood sugar problem, and a blood sugar problem quietly becomes a mouth problem. Dentists sometimes catch undiagnosed diabetes before a physician does, purely because gums that won't stop bleeding or healing are often the first visible sign something is wrong elsewhere in the body, and it doesn't stop at blood sugar. Large population studies have found that people with periodontal disease carry a meaningfully higher risk of cardiovascular events, heart attack and stroke among them, and researchers have traced actual periodontal bacteria into arterial plaque itself, not just correlated in a spreadsheet, but physically present at the site of the damage. the same inflammatory pathway shows up a third time in dementia research, where the bacteria most responsible for advanced gum disease has been found enriched in genetic pathways shared with Alzheimer's disease. A sore gum and a foggy afternoon might be filed under two completely different specialists, but underneath, they may be running on the same inflammatory fuel. Brain fog deserves its own line in this, separate from full dementia risk. Chronic low-grade gum inflammation keeps the immune system in a state of constant background activation, releasing inflammatory signaling molecules that circulate well beyond the mouth, and researchers studying that same inflammatory load have tied it to slower processing speed and reduced short-term recall in otherwise healthy adults, not just in diagnosed disease. It's a plausible explanation for a specific common complaint. Feeling mentally sluggish for no obvious reason, with no bad night of sleep and no obvious stressor to blame, while an entirely separate, painless problem quietly runs in the background of the mouth. So the daily habits stop looking cosmetic and start looking systemic. Saltwater rinses, a genuinely old-fashioned habit, still common in Japanese households. I do something modern mouthwash marketing rarely explains. Warm saltwater raises the pH in the mouth just enough to make it a worse environment for the acid-producing bacteria behind both cavities and gum inflammation, and it draws fluid out of swollen gum tissue through basic osmosis, calming inflammation without a single chemical additive. It costs about 3 cents a rinse. Blood pressure has a mouth connection almost nobody expects, and it's mechanical, not metaphorical. Certain bacteria living on the back of the tongue convert dietary nitrate, the compound found abundantly in leafy greens and root vegetables, into nitrite, which the body then turns into nitric oxide, the same molecule that relaxes blood vessel walls and lowers blood pressure. Traditional Japanese meals, heavy on exactly those vegetables, keep feeding that pathway daily. But researchers have found the opposite is also true. Antiseptic mouthwash, the kind marketed hardest for fresh breath, wipes out the same nitrate-converting bacteria along with the bad ones, and clinical trials have measured blood pressure rising in people who switch to daily antiseptic rinsing. The harsh mouthwash aisle and the saltwater rinse aren't interchangeable habits. One is quietly sterilizing away a blood pressure ally along with the smell. Chewing itself is doing more work than people give it credit for, too. Traditional Japanese meals lean on food that demand real jaw effort. Root vegetables like gobo and renkon, whole fish with the texture still intact, rice that hasn't been processed into something soft. That chewing resistance increases saliva production, and saliva isn't just there to keep the mouth comfortable. It buffers the acid that erodes enamel, carries minerals back into tooth surfaces after every meal, and physically rinses food debris away from the gum line before bacteria get a real foothold. A diet built around soft, processed food asks the jaw to do almost nothing, and a mouth that chews almost nothing produces lace of its own natural defense. There's a sleep connection buried in here too, and it runs straight through that same saliva system. Saliva production drops sharply during sleep for everyone, which is exactly why bacteria proliferate fastest overnight and why morning breath exists in the first place. But poor, fragmented sleep and the mouth breathing that often comes with it dry the mouth out even further. And a chronically dry mouth is a chronically higher risk mouth for both cavities and gum disease. the same consistent sleep schedule, already tied to better blood sugar control and lower cortisol in Japanese longevity research, is quietly protecting the gum on the exact same overnight shift. Cortisol shows up here too, and it's not subtle once you look for it. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, and elevated cortisol suppresses the specific immune responses that keep bacteria in the mouth in check, while also constricting blood flow to gum tissue that needs circulation to heal itself after the ordinary daily wear of eating and brushing. Dentists have a name for the gum recession and bruxism, the nighttime jaw clenching, that shows up in chronically stressed patients, and the mechanism is entirely physical, not cosmetic. It's another organ system quiet absorbing the same stress hormone tied to belly fat and disrupted sleep everywhere else in this niche. Posture and jaw alignment matter more than they get credit for as well. Years of forward head posture from desk work and phone use pull the jaw out of its natural resting alignment, adding uneven pressure to specific teeth and the joint connecting the jaw to the skull, the same joint that clicks or aches in people who also complain of chronic neck and upper back pain. Japanese posture culture, the same walking habits and low furniture living that keep hips and ankles mobile into old age, keeps the neck and jaw in a more neutral position by default, which is one more quiet advantage stacked on top of the diet and the tea. Walking earns one more mention here, and it's the least obvious connection of the whole video. Gum tissue heals the same way any other soft tissue heals, through circulation, and regular walking has been shown across multiple health outcomes to improve peripheral blood flow, meaning the same daily walk already tied to lower blood pressure and better blood sugar control is also quietly delivering more oxygen and repair capacity to gum tissue, working overtime to recover from a day of eating and brushing. A sedentary lifestyle risks more than knees and waistlines. It quietly slows repair in tissue almost nobody thinks to connect to a walk around the block. There's a mobility echo here too, the same one that shows up everywhere else in Japanese longevity research. Chewing hard, fibrous food is doing double duty as active resistance exercise for the jaw joint and the muscle around it. And researchers studying elderly populations have found that people who lose chewing ability tend to lose grip strength and overall muscle mass on a similar timeline, not because one causes the other directly, but because both are downstream of the same shift toward a softer, lower effort daily life. A jaw that stays strong from decade of real chewing is sitting on the same use it or lose it principle as a knee that stays mobile from decade of walking instead of driving everywhere. The gut plays its part too, further downstream than almost anyone would guess. Swallow oral bacteria don't simply disappear once they leave the mouth. And a mouth in a chronic state of gum inflammation is constantly seeding the gut microbiome with the same inflammatory species responsible for the damage up top. A gut microbiome under that kind of pressure has been linked in emerging research to less efficient cholesterol handling, adding one more thread to a system where a bleeding gum line, a stressed gut, and a rising cholesterol number stop being 3 unrelated appointments on 3 unrelated calendars. So none of this is one trick, a 3-cent salt rinse, a brush that costs less than a coffee, green tea already on the table, a diet with real texture instead of soft convenience food, consistent sleep. None of it individually explains a population where half of 80-year-olds still chew their own food, but stacked together for decades, it adds up to gums that never got the chance to quietly fail in the background. Here's the part that should actually bother you. Gum disease doesn't announce itself the way a cavity does. There's no sharp pain forcing a dentist visit. It just recedes quietly year after year until a tooth that felt solid for 40 years suddenly isn't. The bleeding when you floss that everyone dismisses as normal is not normal. It's the earliest visible warning a slow-motion structural failure is already underway, which raises the only question actually worth sitting with once this video ends, not whether you need a whitening kit or an implant consultation, whether the last time your gums bled, you treated it as background noise or as the warning it actually was, file away next to a dozen other small signals the body sends and gets ignored. A $3 interdental brush and a cup of tea you were probably going to drink anyway can start protecting 50 years of chewing before a single dentist appointment gets involved. What's stopping you from picking one up tomorrow? If quiet, unglamorous fixes like this, the ones nobody's advertising because there's no margin in a bottle brush and a tea bag, are useful to you, there's a whole list of them waiting in the next video, starting with the daily habit that's been silently drying out more than just your mouth while you sleep.